There's no free will. There's no free will. I know you're looking at me like, what? I make choices every day. There's no free will. It's all written. Hear me out. There's no free will in the way that you think it is. What I mean by that is that timeline, that reality you're living in is already written. Everything is happening all at once, right? There's so many timelines, so many realities that are happening all at once. I have to push Leo out the way. Hear me out. You ever been in a timeline? You ever had a situation where you're like, oh, God's trying to teach me a lesson. God's trying to teach me a lesson. You're in the timeline maybe when you're like dating someone crazy toxic, and you're like, I did this for this guy, girl. I did this, that, and that, and they won't change. They won't change. You can never change it. It's written for them to be like that. You're in a timeline where you're learning lessons where that person's going to always be toxic. What you need to do is choose differently. Because what I think a lot of people fail to understand is that there's a version of you that already exists that's not with someone who's toxic. Actually, you with someone, could be that person who's acting accordingly. But that's a different timeline. I know it's just crazy esoteric. I know it's out there, whatever. You don't have free will in that sense. What it means is you're literally choosing, not trying to change because it's written, you can't change it. That's why we keep going wrong. We stay trying to overthink things. We stay trying to understand, what does this mean? No. What you do is you choose the timeline you want to be in. I'm going to give you a really good thing. My brother said I could say it, so I'm going to say it. My brother, who was on dialysis 3 times a week, 4 or 5 hours a day. He was in a timeline where he was sick, right? That was his timeline. That was his life. You know, he probably wallowed in it, understandably. I told him, I was like, bro, gotta shift your timeline. He's probably looking at me like, what are you talking about? See, you can't change this timeline. This timeline is written for you to be sick, for you to maybe teach people. Like I said, I can't tell you why this timeline's happening. A lot of times they're happening for lessons, for reasons, between you and between God on that one. But I said you can shift to another timeline. You have that power and ability to shift to another timeline. Amen. I'm telling you, you can choose differently. You cannot change what is already written. Confirmation. This one here got a new ball on the app. So basically that's what I told him. I said, what do you mean shift? I said, what's the version of you that you want to be? Oh, okay, I'll be working every day, this and this and that. So he started to shift himself, shift his thoughts, shift his subconscious, his self-concept in his subconscious, shifting, thinking differently, being like, oh, the version of me, because I said, hey, the version of you that exists that isn't sick, because he's still looking at me crazy, you know. But I said, I'm telling you, the version of you exists. Every version of everyone exists. I said, there's a version of you that exists that isn't sick. Start acting like them. What does that look like? Yeah, you got to go to dialysis. And I ain't saying be crazy, but you're getting up in the morning, taking care of yourself, you know, going to work on a regular schedule, going out, hanging out with your friends. Don't get caught up in that depressive loop, even though I understand it. Start activating yourself. Start doing stuff. He started doing that. Mind you, he was on dialysis for years. I started seeing a shift in him. He liked to dress. Started dressing up, doing his thing. I looked. He chose a new timeline. Guess what? Kidney donor. Dialysis done. Because he shifted himself to the version that doesn't have any type of dialysis. He shifted himself to a healthy version. That's the timeline he's on right now. Left that timeline. Didn't fight it. Didn't smash it up. Chose a new timeline. I did that all the time. Because this is the thing that people don't think. We shift all the time. But what we do is we get into a timeline. We say, this is the timeline I want to be in. I want to be rich. I want to be whatever. I want to be confident. And then when something happens that you define, because you know you're not supposed to let anything define you, but when a circumstance happens, a person says something that you determine to mean something negative, you okay, baby? You okay? Anyway, this video is going crazy long, but I just think it's so important. So you're in a timeline, you're saying this is what I want to do, but when a circumstance comes into your life Instead of you just saying, I'm going to let it go. I know God got me because I chose. I'm not trying to change. What you do is something to happen, and then you be like, but why it happened to me? Things never work out. There's always something. And you know what it does? You put you back in that goddamn timeline of lack. That goddamn timeline of you don't have anything. Because right away when something happens that you determine to mean something, because you have the power to determine what things mean. But since you're going back to your old timeline ways, your old man ways, you're going back into that same timeline of lack. It's like a loop. You loop yourself back. It's like a pendulum. You swing yourself back into that old timeline because you refuse to stay on point. Right, Leo? You let yourself go back into that timeline instead of you determining what that situation means. Because let me tell you something, when things start looking crazy, circumstances, I just sit back. I just let it go. I let it be. Let it play out. Because what am I fearful for? I put my faith in God. Like, I know my power. I know God's power. So I let it be. That circumstance don't mean anything. I know my timeline. I chose my timeline. And people say, oh, you're not worried. Worried about what? Worrying is a part of the old man timeline that I used to always do. So if I know that I'm confident, I know that everything works out for me. I know I'm on an up and up, whatever. When circumstances happen, I just sit back. Change what? Fight what? Resist what? See, what we do, this is where we go wrong. We try to change something. You're changing it, not realizing that it's written, that timeline is written for you. When you choose a timeline, you stick with it, know it's done, sit back, relax, give it to God. See, you need to know you don't need to change. You need to choose, and you just need to chill. Seriously, I think I should write that down. You don't need to change anything. You need to choose and chill. When you attempt to resist and change circumstance, it puts you right back in that timeline. You wonder why things aren't moving for you. You wonder why is this happening? When you ask that question, that's a question of someone in the old timeline. Why are you letting circumstances define you? Come on. You go to the person. You live like a person. And I'm not saying chill like, oh, chill. You can't just chill sitting on the couch. But there's inspired action. There's a knowing. It's like, I know who I am. I know what I'm choosing. I know what I'm aligning with. So I let it play out because it's my timeline. When you start, you're going right back. You're going right back. So remember, it's written. It's already written. It's not about changing. It's about choosing. This is a long-ass video. I hope it gets through to someone. If you have questions, let me know. And let the church say, amen.